Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to be having a conversation today about how important it is to know your audience, to know your community, and to build relationships. And so please join me in welcoming Kristi Jenkins to our program today. Welcome, Kristi. How are you?
Thank you, Deb. It's so great to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
We're going to have such a great discussion. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this.
Great.
So with more than 2 decades of real estate experience and countless repeat clients, Kristi Jenkins is known as your Realtor for life. She has helped her clients move through many stages of change and growth, from first-time home buyers to empty nesters to everyone in between. Kristi has won numerous awards for both her exceptional client care and her excellence in sales, which sets her apart in her field. Kristi's attention to detail, fierce negotiation skills, and exceptional marketing exceed the expectation of both buyers and sellers. She specializes in luxury and waterfront properties. She is on the West Coast, throughout the greater Eastside and Seattle areas, and sells across all price points. She is an expert in residential resales, new construction, and land acquisition and development. So again, Kristi, welcome.
Thank you, Deb.
It's always so fun when we hear our own bios, right? We're like, ooh.
You do. You listen and you go, do I need to revise that? That sound like too much of a list, too many, things on there. It reads different than it looks. So
it does. And I will say one of the things I have discovered is a man's bio always brags about himself a lot more than a woman's.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of those things.
Absolutely.
So, I've given a little snippet about you, but tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I like to say I fell into real estate. It was a bit of an accident. That really wasn't the career that I sought for myself growing up. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I was a young mom. I was pre-law in school, graduated early. I had every intention of going into the law field. And then I had a child and was working for a corporate company, and I just wasn't sure that was the right fit for me. So I joined my mom. She had recently gone into real estate, and we were partners for many years, which was a great way for me to kind of get my feet wet into the industry and to realize that it really did have a lot of the things that I was really passionate about: negotiating, marketing. Marketing had been what I'd been doing at a gaming company, corporate wise. And so it encompassed a lot of things I knew I was already good at, but it just like a lot of careers, it pivoted over the years. And I think for a long time, I used it as a way to show my girls that you can be a successful entrepreneur, you can be a successful business person, and still be a really present parent. And that was kind of, I think for many years, it was, I used this career as a way to survive. And then I figured out how to use it to thrive. Right. And so I think it changed over time, and it has, changed as our industry has changed and as different things have been introduced into our industry. But I think it really did originate from a way for me to feel like I was giving my girls a really good example of what they could do and what they could be if they worked hard and really stayed focused on their goals and still be really there for them as they were growing up.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful. And the nice thing is it does give you flexibility. I think that's one of the most challenging things, obviously, for parents is, okay, they've got somebody that they've got to drop off here after school. They've got this program they've got to go to. Oh, they got to make 20 dozen cookies. I mean, all of those various things. And, when you are your own business owner, whether it's real estate or whatever, you do to some degree have that flexibility. We were, kind of laughing before the program that when a closing is set, that's set. I mean, you can't say, I'm sorry, I got a baseball game. But it is, you do have more flexibility than when you are working for someone else. And that is definitely one of the appeals that people go into business for and decide to become entrepreneurs.
And I think for me too, having my mom as my business partner in this too was such a huge help, because we weren't really trying to grow a business that was full time for both of us. We were trying to grow a business that could sustain itself, but that we could still have lives. We still had other things. So it really did provide that flexibility. I think now as a solo entrepreneur, I work way harder and way more hours than I did, when I was doing it, more as the kids were younger, and they're both grown and out of college now. But
oh my gosh, I would have thought high school.
No. I've got two girls, and they both just graduated from college. So
wonderful. I love it. I love it. It is. And I think that's one of the things when we start our own businesses that ends up being kind of one of the biggest challenges is setting the boundaries, not working 24/7. I had clients that would say, well, you work from home. Why can't you work on evenings or weekends? And, and obviously it depends on what you're doing. A realtor is probably going to have to do more evenings and weekends. So you might have, things free, but I do marketing. And so that's a daytime job. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned pretty early on was to set boundaries and to tell my clients, I work these hours to these hours. Now, it has changed over the years, just like everything else, because my client base spread to, many time zones. So you kind of have to deal with that. But I also discovered that, I would tell them, I work from 8 till 5. Things happen outside those hours on evenings or weekends. Feel free to contact me. If it's an emergency, we will deal with it, but it will cost you twice as much. And they all discovered it was never an emergency. But I also learned, if I was going to tell them that, then I should not be responding to their emails at 10 o'clock at night. Right. Exactly. Because then they're going to be thinking, well, she really is working at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. But to be able to set such a fabulous example for your daughters, I love that idea.
Yeah, it really did. And I think to your point too, what you were saying, I think one of the things that makes me unique, and I don't think that realtors now, especially those that are younger in the business, really do. They're probably better at setting boundaries. I don't know if that's better for the client or just better for them. I think one of the things for me, I feel like being accessible and being available to my clients at all hours of the day and evening when it's a really critical, they're dealing with some of the biggest, most important decisions of their entire life.
Definitely one of the most monetary things.
Absolutely. And if at 10 o'clock at night, they've been talking and they're really worried about a specific thing, I want them to know that they can text or call me, because I probably aren't going to sleep that night if they're really concerned, or they realize that they maybe have forgot to look at something, we did the inspection, or maybe they didn't realize that they were supposed to, get their money liquidated and send it to escrow, and they're not going to sleep at night if they don't have the answer to that question. And if it's something that I can provide, I love for my clients to be able to know that I am that constant and very communicative resource for them.
Right. And the nice thing is you can also decide, I'm only going to have 3 clients that I'm working with at a time, or something like that. And so then that helps you set those boundaries also.
Absolutely. Yep. And I do think it is, it's a volume and it's a care thing. And I think, my team has grown as the volume has grown, but in a way that I still feel like I can take personal care of each of my clients. And that really has been the heart of my business. This is a relationship building business. If anyone gets into this because they think it's transactional, you're in the wrong career. This is probably going to be a short-term job for you and not a career, because the whole goal of building a real estate business is to build those clients for life, that they will not only use you once, but use you again and refer friends. I've had a client I've helped buy and sell 12 properties for over the last 15
Did they
years.
live in all of those, or was this just
No,
okay.
no, some of them were investment properties,
Okay.
a vacation home, home for his
Mhm.
grown son, home for his
Oh,
parents. I mean, there was,
wonderful.
yeah, a lot of
Mhm.
overlap and family dynamics in there. But that's, I love doing that. I love
Mhm.
being part of. Somebody asked me the
Mhm.
other day, what's my favorite part of this job? And I love being invited back
Mhm.
to be
Great.
part of the family. When
Great.
somebody has moved into a home and they've made
Mhm.
it their own,
Mhm.
and they feel like they are so pleased with how things ended that they want me to see how they've
Right.
moved in and how
Mhm.
they've made it their own. And that
Mhm.
really, that's
Oh,
kind of
very
the full
cool.
circle
Mhm.
moment,
Mhm.
for me, of
Mhm.
feeling like it didn't just end with
Mhm.
the transaction, but I
Mhm.
get to continue to be part of their lives.
Right. And what you're saying is so important because I think so many people think one and done, right? And obviously it depends on what they're doing, but you, if it's a one and done, you at least want them to be referring to you.
Yeah.
But it's, we all see the stats, we see the numbers
Yeah.
where it is much more profitable to keep clients than to keep having to churn new ones.
Yeah.
And so that's, but I think so many people just think, well, it is, I don't have to give great customer service. I know I've interviewed Peter Shankman several times on the program, and he's a big marketing guru.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said one time, and this really struck me, obviously, because I remembered it, was that average is what we expect.
Mm.
And so when you get below average, you're like, okay, whatever. If you get average, then you're like, okay, whatever. But when you get really good, you're just stunned.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we should be striving to be really good providers as opposed to average. Mhm.
Exceptional
Right.
service. I
Mhm.
mean, it's, I think, when you can look at a transaction
Mhm.
and see that from start to finish, and a lot of times it's about the way
Mhm.
that you finish, not about the
Mhm.
entire
Right.
process, because
Mhm.
something can go wrong at the end
Mhm.
and you could have had a
Mhm.
great experience the
Right.
whole rest of the time,
Mhm.
but something happens at the end. A
Mhm.
lot of times it's with the financing or
Mhm.
escrow, or somebody
Right.
drops the
That
ball, or
you
there's
might
a
have not
delay.
really had any control over.
No
Mhm.
control over
Mhm.
whatsoever. But if that's the last taste that they
Mhm.
have in their mouth, that can
Mhm.
taint the whole
Mhm.
experience. And I can't tell you how many times I've run across clients or talked to people who really did have a great
Mhm.
experience with their real estate agent,
Mhm.
but they hadn't heard from them in 5,
Mhm.
10+ years. They
Mhm.
didn't even know if they were still doing it
Right.
anymore.
Mhm.
And I think that's, another big part of
Mhm.
the process, and why I invest so much
Mhm.
in continuing the
Mhm.
relationship, is because, like we've already been discussing,
Mhm.
you not only want them to use you again, but you want them to refer to you. But in
Mhm.
order to do that, they need to still know that
Mhm.
you're active and you're
Right.
present and you're still involved
Mhm.
in the community and you're still serving
Mhm.
people. And so I think, that's been one of the things that
Mhm.
has built and grown my
Mhm.
business over the last
Right.
21 years, is just
Mhm.
staying in touch with
Mhm.
people with things of
Mhm.
value,
Mhm.
making sure that I mean, every Christmas time, I hand deliver gifts to all of my
Mhm.
clients in the area and
Mhm.
have those personally created.
Mhm.
And I send gifts to
Mhm.
clients abroad. And I've got, newsletters that I get out,
Mhm.
real active ways that I can touch clients. And
Mhm.
it took me that's not how I started my
Right.
business. I think,
Mhm.
you know, we didn't have the same availability of
Mhm.
materials and
Right.
products
Oh
and
yeah,
so
that's the
forth that
nice
we did.
thing now is,
Yeah.
all the various options we have. It just makes life so much easier to
Yeah.
keep those, which is
Yeah.
again why it's sad that people aren't doing this.
Right. It really, I mean,
Mhm.
there's definitely a time
Mhm.
element, but there's also,
Mhm.
you kind of have to curate
Mhm.
what kind of a business is that
Mhm.
you want
Right.
to create.
Mhm.
And what does that mean? What
Mhm.
kind of touch points, what kind of
Mhm.
messaging, are you trying
Mhm.
to do to
Mhm.
clients? And I think that's a big part of, you've got to
Mhm.
have an overall business
Mhm.
plan that looks at how
Mhm.
much time, how much energy, what kind of
Right.
resources do I have, how
Mhm.
much money am I going to spend in
Mhm.
different ways in different areas,
Mhm.
and really kind of hone in on that and
Mhm.
stick to it. And I think so many of us, we grew up doing this business, in the time period that we did, where it was
Mhm.
just organic. You
Mhm.
just,
Right.
you talk to people,
Mhm.
you interact with them, you share what you do,
Mhm.
and then it becomes this thing that turns
Mhm.
into a transaction,
Mhm.
and you don't really think about the process
Right.
very much,
Mhm.
at least not from a realtor's
Mhm.
perspective. I know business planning has been,
Mhm.
obviously something that people have done for a very
Mhm.
long time, but I don't think realtors really adopted
Mhm.
that until much later in the game
Right.
than when I,
Mm-hmm.
came into it. So I think definitely has been
Mm-hmm.
a pivot and a
Mm-hmm.
change, of course, that is important and
Mm-hmm.
something that I certainly encourage all of
Mm-hmm.
the new realtors and
Right.
agents that I
Mm-hmm.
mentor and talk to
Mm-hmm.
really kind of hone in
Mm-hmm.
on.
Right. And like you said, a lot of people, especially with real estate, got into it, especially when the market was booming, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't have to think, what are we going to be doing in 6 months?
Yeah.
Because it was just, this stuff was going so quickly. Well, then of course things hit.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do, things that had been doing before. And and for many of them, they were done. I mean, like you said, they hadn't set a firm base. And uh, I like to think that what we do is unique, but it's not. you
Yeah.
know but how we do it is the unique part. And
Exactly.
and I think that's because real estate, for an example, I can open up my Facebook feed right now and probably have 5 different people in there that are realtors within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And some of those are going to be sponsored posts, so I don't know them, but we're also connected to a lot of people.
Yeah.
All of these things. And so then when the time comes where either we're having to make a decision or somebody says, hey, who do you know? It's going to be the person that we got the hand delivered Christmas basket from. We
Yeah.
get the monthly newsletter, all of those things. Those are going to be the ones that we remember and that we refer to.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And it's just about staying. I was talking to Mike Cuevas
Mm-hmm.
the other day, and we were talking about how it's our job to stay top of
Mm-hmm.
mind
Mm-hmm.
as the agent.
Right.
It's not, if somebody forgets what we do or
Mm-hmm.
forgets, how to contact us or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to reach us, that's on us.
Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
to continue to, do those touch points
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that those clients feel
Mm-hmm.
like you have provided the kind of
Mm-hmm.
aftercare service
Mm-hmm.
that's
Right.
important too. And that's part of it as well,
Mm-hmm.
as, in that first year, checking back and make sure I always provide
Mm-hmm.
a home warranty. Did they have any issues that they
Mm-hmm.
needed that for?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things could we have
Mm-hmm.
done differently,
Mm-hmm.
or what did we not see that we could have seen, so that I'm continuing to grow
Mm-hmm.
as an agent and making
Right.
sure that
Mm-hmm.
I'm honing in on those
Mm-hmm.
things that can continue to
Mm-hmm.
build me as an
Mm-hmm.
exceptional agent for my
Mm-hmm.
clients in the future. I think
Right.
too, a lot of real estate agents kind of rest on,
Mm-hmm.
what they've learned and what they've
Mm-hmm.
done in this process that they've
Mm-hmm.
created. But I think it's important to understand this industry keeps
Oh.
changing, the
Mm-hmm.
expectations keep
Mm-hmm.
changing, and therefore we have to continue raising the level of our
Mm-hmm.
game, raising
Mm-hmm.
our expectations of what that looks
Mm-hmm.
like, being more
Mm-hmm.
proactive, listening harder,
Mm-hmm.
looking closer. I think all of that, and clients are savvier too.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Right.
if you are just a resource
Mm-hmm.
for your clients,
Mm-hmm.
if all you're giving them is
Mm-hmm.
information, you are not doing them a
Mm-hmm.
service. We
Right.
are in an information
Mm-hmm.
overload period right now.
Right.
You've got to
Mm-hmm.
be providing them something
Mm-hmm.
that is unique above
Mm-hmm.
and beyond what they can
Mm-hmm.
find online.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to think that
Mm-hmm.
that's my years of honing
Mm-hmm.
my skills
Mm-hmm.
creates that different
Mm-hmm.
experience,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so much more
Mm-hmm.
than just about information.
Right. And we were talking again before the program about AI and how that's really going to be changing a lot of things because we can automate, so
Yeah.
much. I have a newsletter that when I remember to send it out, right? I'm one of those people. People are like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this has such great information. But sometimes I'll go several months and then I'll think, oh, crud. And so there are some things that we can automate, but we need to make sure that they always know that there is a person there.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the biggest complaints that people have is that I can't find the person.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memes that I see, probably weekly on Facebook, is, somebody yelling into the phone, person, right? Because they want to talk to a person and not,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they still need to be able to do that. But there's also, like you said, there's so much information out there.
Yes.
As we are recording this, Hurricane Helene was not that long ago. I'm in Atlanta. We got over 6 inches of rain. Nothing more than a lot of rain. I mean, we were very fortunate. Power didn't go out. No trees came down, all sorts of things like that. But as either an insurance person or a realtor, and you have to be careful, right, to not take advantage of the situation. But maybe you should be sending a newsletter out where one of the subject is or one of the articles in it is, do you have flood insurance?
Yeah.
And you're not selling anything. It's just, hey, have you even thought about this? Because my understanding is that's the biggest issue, is so many people in North Carolina and Tennessee they didn't really think that they needed it, which, that's always the challenge.
Yeah.
But, and just things, or, cool new Christmas decoration trends. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can be sending to people, again, just to stay top of mind.
And not salesy. My newsletter is never salesy, and I've stuck with the same format. It's 5 pieces of content. And the first is always something about me personally. It's a vacation we went on. It was my daughter's graduation. It was something that we celebrated, a holiday, or a family time, or, something that was important in our life. And then the only real estate adjacent thing that I do is I highlight a dream property, something in the multi-millions, usually overseas, something because I think people love to just think about and dream about real estate that is out of, most people's bounds. So, and then I always feature a local business. I think usually a woman-owned business, but I think it's really important to keep driving back into your community and continue to fuel that. And then I always focus on my blog post. I think it's a great way for people to see kind of what I've been doing and talking about outside of real estate, and then some kind of community event that's happening. So like for this month, we've got a big Salmon Days festival in Issaquah, and I highlighted that. It's been going on for over 50 years. And so highlighting something in the area so that it gives people an idea of not only what they can do, but also that you're still really tied into the community. And I think that's such a huge part of, and I get a ton of engagement from my newsletters. And I really, it's been a passion project of mine, and something that I talk a lot to new agents about, because it is a really easy, it takes me less than an hour to create every month. And once you've got email addresses set out for your clients, it's so easy to send out. And it's such a meaningful and impactful way to stay in touch with your clients. I think it's just very, very important to have some of those steps, set up ahead of time to be able to stay in touch with them. And I hear back, I get more feedback, I get more comments, about my newsletter than anything else that I'm doing. Social media, touch points, anything else. So.
Yeah. And like you said, it's not that complicated to do it. If you're involved in your community, you're going to know a lot of this anyway. And I think that's one of the things that's so important is being involved in our communities, and knowing what's important to them. It's, then okay, the Christmas parade is the highlight of what, I don't know why I'm stuck on Christmas, but or trick or treating, right? Yeah. Okay, because that's coming up real soon. So what, that might be something that is very important to people, and so what little tips can you put in there? And as you said, it's not a sales tool. Your logo's on there, the information on how to contact you. But it's not buy from me, buy from me, buy from me.
Right. And to be honest, 95% of what I do has nothing to do with selling people. Right. I'm a relationship builder. I'm a community integrator. I want people to come to me because they feel like they've gotten to know me, or they appreciate what I'm doing online, or how I've taken care of people. I want them to come to me because they feel like there's a connection and they know that I would service them well, but not because I'm trying to reach out to sell them anything. And that's how I use all of these platforms regardless. It's just a way to connect people. It's a way for people to feel connected to me. And if I'm the kind of real estate agent that they feel like would be a good fit for them, that's the best kind of client that I can ask for. One that trusts me, one that's, heard good things about me from somebody that they trust, one that's been following me online for a while and has seen how I take care of people, and that I'm honest about things I could have done differently, and ways that I've creatively helped people get out of, sticky situations, or help them get a house when it was up against multiple offers. If that's the kind of agent that they're looking for, then I want them to reach out to me. I don't want to be hunting people down, because I have found out the hard way that clients that you work too hard for, there's usually a reason that it's that tough.
Right. They're the pain in the took us type of clients.
Yeah.
I remember one time when we were selling, and this was when we were in Denver, and these folks actually did end up buying from us, but the realtor just kind of mentioned, she said, I'm their fourth realtor. And I thought, I wouldn't have taken them. I mean, and now, and I did find it kind of funny that she even knew that, that they had disclosed that, because, and sometimes you just don't match. I mean, and so that's perfectly fine. But yeah, by the time you get to 4, and when we were dealing with them, I could see why. I mean, these were the people. Well, and it was one of those situations. I mean, you talk family dynamics. It was mom and dad who were divorced, buying the house for the daughter who was expecting and her boyfriend. Oh yeah. You can just imagine that, and I mean, it was a challenge. And I actually, we sold like 13 years ago. I think they still have the house. So, that's, but yeah, it was. But I think that's one of the things that so many people forget, is that whole relationship, as you were saying, that relationship business is dealing with what are those family dynamics, and maybe, because you've known them for 10 years or whatever, maybe just through their Facebook posts, Instagram, whatever, that they've got 3 dogs. And so that's going to be really important to them when they're looking at property. And so, for you to just automatically say, hey, we found this place that's got this great, place for your dogs. They're like, whoa.
Yeah. And I had to too, one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn as a real estate agent, and I think it's because it kept hitting me in the face over and over again, was that I'm not the right fit for everybody. Right. And that that's okay. It's okay that we're interviewing each other. I need to be right for you, just like you're right for me too, because we hopefully are going to have a long relationship. And this is going to be a really stressful process. And it brings out a lot of things in people, in their relationships, in the way that they deal with money, maybe in the way that they handle conflict. And I also had to realize that some people that I know really well may not want me to see that side of them.
Right.
Or that side of their relationship.
Yeah, they might, for example, they might not want you to know their financial situation.
Exactly. 100%. And I think I dealt with that a lot. I grew up in the church. My parents my dad was a senior pastor, and with my mom and I, she was the pastor's wife and I was the pastor's daughter, and we had this business. And I think I felt very, very offended when a lot of people would choose someone else. A lot of times it was a man, real estate agent, a male agent. But a lot of times I think that looking back on it now, it was because there was this line that people didn't want to cross. And, they trusted me as a friend and a confidant, and they liked us well enough, and they thought that we probably could have done a very sufficient job for them, but they didn't want to cross that line between letting us in a little bit too much into what was going on, because they, there's this kind of idea that they wanted to keep, that everything was great, and maybe everything wasn't once you got down below the surface in stressful situations. Yeah. But I did take that personally. I'm a firstborn type A perfectionist. And, because this is a relationship building business, that struck me as a very hurtful rejection. And you just had, was Alice on your show not too long ago, and she was talking about, rejection and how we have to understand and how to deal with that and grow from that. And I think that's a huge part of being in any kind of business, was figuring out that, that rejection, it's a way for us to learn and grow and to see something out of it. And that's not easy for a lot of us to come to terms with.
Oh yeah. And we do take rejection personally. And, what we need to be doing is, as we did talk about this with Alice, is learning from it. Okay. Why were we rejected? Was there something that we could fix? Like you said, sometimes they just wanted a man. Okay. You can't change. So, that was, or it also could be, maybe they wanted somebody older. And just all sorts of things like that. And then that's where it's great to actually have a network, because then you can refer to somebody. So then it's kind of the win-win situation. And, but it's, it is, and I talk about this a lot on the program. It is and you mentioned it, a two-way process in that interview. Because you might look at them and think, I don't want to deal with the mom and the dad buying the house for the kid. And, and then that's when you just very politely say, I'm terribly sorry, but my calendar is full.
Yeah.
And you very well might know somebody who would be great at representing that,
Yes.
and then you can say, hey, here's this person that you might want to talk to.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I think looking back, you can see hindsight being 2020, how you could have avoided some of those challenging situations if you just would have had your boundaries set. And if you would have just kind of protected yourself from some of those situations. I had a client, and we'd worked for 2 weeks to get their house ready, and we looked at the comps, we talked about a sales price, we talked about the process. I staged it. I mean, I called in all kinds of favors because we'd put an offer in on another house, so time was really of the essence to get theirs on. And the morning we went to list it, I was literally just about to click active on the MLS, and the husband said, I won't do it if we don't list it for $200,000 higher than we talked about.
Whoa.
And it was like, wait, what? And he was adamant, and he was a doctor, and there were some stressful things going on in his family and in his practice. And I think that I didn't know all of that was going on at the time. I just thought as you don't trust me, we have talked about this. I've led you, through this process. We've talked about every step of this and why pricing it, at a fair market value. And because of the timing and all of that, like there's this whole process that goes into pricing a home, and to just go out. And we ended up chasing the market and taking 5 price reductions. They lost their contingency. We pulled it off the market, and they still have never sold their house. But we could have captured probably multiple buyers had I stuck to my guns and said, you know what? We agreed on this. I need you to trust me. I need you to let me do what I do. I need you to let me show you that this process is going to work. We've set the home up. It's beautiful. It shows beautifully. I'm going to take care of you. But I wasn't. I was afraid to push back too much because I didn't want to lose what I had built up. I didn't want to lose everything that I had invested in those clients. But, obviously, like I said, hindsight being 2020, you learn from that. And that was a really hard, I put a lot of time and money into that. And I don't get paid unless the house sells.
Oh,
so
definitely.
That was a hard lesson learned, but definitely an important one.
And that is one of the things that happens is we think we have to have that money. And especially when you're just starting out. I mean, that really is something. And so there have been times where I think we probably all taken clients where we've thought, no, but we also have, whether it's the little person on our shoulder or our stomach or whatever that goes, no, and I've had a couple of those where, I was working on giving them a proposal and things like that. And it was just, there's something there. And, and I mean, one was a guy who, and it wasn't anything scary or anything like that, but I got this feeling from him and immediately where I thought something's not quite right. And, we got a little bit further along in the process and I discovered he was incredibly unethical. And it was like, no, not going to deal with you because, it's our reputation ultimately that's on the line. And so when I, told him, I was going to withdraw from the process, he was not happy because I had actually, he liked me the best. And so it was, well, are you sure? I'll offer more. Right. That was the, and it was like, and then, and the more he tried, the more I thought this is the right thing. And then of course it got nasty. It was, and then I really did made the right decision. And, but it was funny because it was between me and somebody else who I happened to know. He didn't know that I knew them. And I went back to them and I said, you might want to think about this. And they said we had the exact same feeling. So there was just something about him, but there are times where we have bills we have to pay. And things like that. And so we do kind of do that. But a big part of it is, and I mentioned this in your bio, is, you specialize in luxury and waterfront properties. we have to find our niche. When we're trying to serve everybody, we actually can't serve anybody.
Yeah.
And so that's where really sometimes that is such a huge benefit, because it's going to eliminate some of those people that, just aren't going to be a good match.
And that's one of the things when I'm working with, newer agents, that I'm talking to them, what can you bring to the table? So many agents that I talk to, especially those that are, recently out of college, the Gen Zs, they're looking, I want to find somebody who will give me leads, who will feed me, who will take care of me, who will and it's like, you need to figure out what you can bring to the table. What is your specialty? What are you great at? It could be everything from, financials to social media. Maybe you have a big network of resources. There's all kinds of pieces of this puzzle that all play into being a real estate agent. And I think if you understand, that's why I have a lot of my clients do like Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or, some kind of assessment to really understand what are they really good at, and then find a team or a group that is missing that piece or is lacking in that piece, so that they're bringing something of value to the table before they're asking for that agent or team to feed back into them. And I think that goes back to, what your niche is that you've got to kind of curate not only what you're good at, but how you want to build and grow your business. And for me, I mean, I've lived in the same city in Sammamish, which is about 20 miles east of Seattle, one of the suburbs of Seattle. I've lived here almost my entire life. This is where I raised my girls. My husband and I raised our girls. This is my community. This is my home. And so for me, being able to talk to people about why the schools are so great here, why we were in Money Magazine. I do. Yeah. I know firsthand. I've gone through the schools. I know many of the teachers. I know all the sports clubs. I know the dance studios. I know all of that that's involved here. And I think part of helping people find a house is helping them integrate into their community. And if I can be a piece of that, if I can introduce them to their neighbors, if I can make sure that they get their kids set up in Little League, if I can make sure that they know where the grocery store is, and, all of that, it helps them feel like this is home. And I think that's the best thing that I can do as a real estate agent, is to make sure that they, feel connected to the place that they're about to raise their family, where they're about to, have their next season of life, or where they're about to retire, because I think it's so much a part of community. And that's what I think, one of my superpowers is just being able to do that in the community that I've grown up in and raised my kids into, because it really does come from a real true place from the heart here.
Right.
So.
Well, and, I can just imagine what happens when, say, you're at a high school football game and somebody waves at you and you wave back. And then somebody with them says, "Who was that?" Yeah. "Oh, that's Kristi. We bought our house from her 10 years ago."
Yeah.
That says right there, that says an awful lot, because Absolutely. If they hadn't liked it, they wouldn't have waved at you, right? No. But they remembered who you were. I mean, that is the thing. And, just little things like that. It really does make a huge difference.
It really does. Yeah. And that's, another part of the, the process. I think, people look for houses objectively. They look online, they have a set of criteria. Right. They look at photos.
We've driven the neighborhoods.
Exactly. All of that is so important, but they buy subjectively. Right. I think that they very few people buy sight unseen. I think most people. I know.
When you see people, we bought this house off the internet. Really? How can you do that? Don't you need to kick the tires?
Yeah. I think so many people walk in and it's about how it looks and feels and smells, and they can envision, their family there. They can envision, where their furniture is going to go. And, it checks all the boxes. Yes. But that's just a piece of the puzzle. I think that when, you can fall in love with the home, that you've found that success subjectively. Right. And so I think kind of piecing that all together too. That's why even when I'm listing a house, all of my sellers prepare a top 10 list. What are the top 10 things that they have loved about living here? And a lot of times it's mostly about the home, but it's also about their yard, the community.
Right. I like Bob the Butcher.
Yeah, exactly. Some of their favorite things about living at this house, because it tells a story of this home that the potential buyer who comes in can already start to feel connected to. And so I think that subjectivity, the way that you feel about a house is so critically important. And I think that's a step, a piece that a lot of real estate agents fail to recognize, is that they are not just opening doors and, printing out flyers and reading down a list of things. You are helping people find a home.
Right.
You're helping them find a community to grow and, and really become a part of. And that's a huge responsibility that I take, really seriously, because it's very, very important. We've been in our house for 20 years and I can't imagine, having raised our girls in a different house, in a different community. That's been such a huge part, so much more than just the structure of the house. It's everything else that it offered. And so that's not lost on me, when I'm helping clients find houses, or when I'm helping sellers sell their houses, that we need to find that just right buyer who loves this house and who wants it for a lot of the reasons that you guys loved it at. And that makes for an even smoother transaction, which is just all the better for me too, because, love to see that, the buyer and the seller want the same things and are committed from the get-go, because they're going to be the new, stewards of this home.
Yeah. Because for so many people, like you said, they raised their family there, they did whatever, and it meant so much. It's funny. My mom sold the house that I grew up in. She'd lived there almost 50 years and it was time for her to move. At very, very small mountain town in Colorado. And we have been back a couple of times, and they immediately made changes. Now, and it was like, ooh. Blah. Now, I mean, part of it is, okay, it's their house now. They need to make it theirs. But it was so funny because I know them. Like I said, it's a very small town. And they said, if you ever want to come in, and I don't want to see how they changed it. Now I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff that they did that they made improvements, and, and you look at it like, oh my God, why didn't we do that? And things like that. But it was like, no, this is where I spent 18 years of my life. I don't want to see what you have done to it.
I had the privilege, just along those same lines, of selling my parents' house. It wasn't the house that I grew up in when I was younger, but they moved when we had kids 2 doors away from us. Lovely. When my mom and I were working together, and when, the kids were little. And so this was the house that my girls knew, as grandma and grandpa's house, and that my siblings and their kids all knew. And so when I listed and sold that house a month before COVID, which was an interesting time. Yeah, exactly. And I moved them into a 55 and over retirement community just on the other side of town. But the people who bought it knew that, I was the daughter of the sellers, and they of course now have become neighbors since it's 2 doors away. And so I'm constantly walking the dog in the neighborhood, and I'll often see the seller or the buyer husband. And, he's always so excited to tell me, oh, please let your parents know, we just reseeded the lawn in the front, and
how
they can see the hardwoods that we put in, on the first level. And, we got new blinds, and we helped them, do some things with the fence when a storm came, and they were so appreciative. But it is, it's one of those things where they felt so connected to the family and the people that lived there, that they felt committed to continuing on the legacy, whether they changed things or not. I think they still, cared and wanted to be, like I said before, good stewards of this, house that they had purchased. So it's always fun. And that's one of the best ways that I keep in touch with my clients, is a lot of times I'll drive by and I'll send a quick video message and, say to my clients, look at what they did with the front yard, or, oh, that they finally replaced the fence, or look at the neighbor's house next door. They put in a fountain here, or, did some different things. So it's kind of fun to keep in touch with clients that way, especially when you know how hard it was for them to leave the home, and how much they cared about who was, coming in and taking care of it. So. Right.
And like you said, it's about those long-term relationships. I'm guessing people stay 10-ish years. Is that kind of the average? That's, and so, in 10 years, you still want them to remember you, and remember you fondly, and say, okay, we're ready to go to the, where they've got the best high school, the senior living community, whatever it is. And it's funny because when we moved here to Atlanta from Denver, it was a corporate relocation. So we got an agent assigned to us, and it was just kind of one of those, I mean, we had to move quickly. It was one of those things. And I mean, we've been in this house now for 13 years. And so obviously it worked out, but she didn't make it easy. And there were just a lot of things, like you said, that just left a bad, like she didn't come to closing. I kind of thought they had to, but she didn't come to closing. That was rather odd. It was like, that was and no follow-up at all afterwards when we were done. And she works for one of those big agencies where they're supposed to follow up repeatedly forever. Yeah. Never heard from her again. And I mean, she got a pretty good commission. I mean, this was not, and I think, I hope we were the good people to deal with. Maybe she went, oh my God, these people are so horrible. But I mean, and it was just, it really was one of those things, because I've had people who have said, who would you recommend? And I'm like, well, not her. I mean, we even did things like because it had to be something that was so quick. I mean, like we flew out here from Denver and we had 3 days to find a house. Wow. And so, and she'd sent us a bunch of stuff in preparation and all that. And we did find one, obviously, but because it was such a rush, we did things like we had a big gift basket for her. And then she doesn't show up for closing. And so I took it to the agency, never heard. I finally called the agency. I said, did she get it? I mean, I mean, but it was,
that's another evidence, piece of evidence of how some agents treat this as a process oriented job.
Oh yeah.
And if that's all you care about is the one paycheck at the end, you are missing such the big picture of this career. And that is, you're building clients for life. You're creating those relationships that give you continued business. Otherwise, you are constantly reinventing the wheel. You are constantly like struggling to figure out where your leads
every day to networking meetings and all of those things. And it is a challenge. I mean, like you said, it's work. You have to keep doing this, but I'd rather be, working on my next newsletter than going to, a networking thing where I may or may not meet somebody. I tell people I don't want to have to put my shoes on. And now, it is one thing about living in the South. The food's always really good, right? Food in the South is always very good. But yeah, it's like, it's so much easier to just do those touch points. And as you said, in the long run, it saves time. I mean, like my newsletter might take me 30 minutes to put together. Going to a networking event is a 3-hour thing. By the time you figure getting dressed, putting my shoes on, driving in Atlanta traffic, yay, eating, watching the program, and then reversing all of that. That's 3 hours out of my day. And I may or may not have met anybody that was going to be, a good client. And so that's, that's one of those things I think people, and we see the people at the networking events that are oh my God, we've got to get clients, I was at a big one time in this, we were in this group of people and this woman rushed up and thrust her business card at all of us and then started to leave. And we're like, wait, who are you? And what are you doing here? And she literally told us, I bet my husband I couldn't get rid of my entire box of new business cards. And away she went. So what do you think we did with those business cards? I mean, we didn't even read it. It was, they were all, I would doubt that she got a single follow-up from that. And, but if she had stopped and talked to the 5 or 6 of us, or however many people were in our little group, who knows what she might have got out of it. Absolutely. But she was definitely in the spray and pray category and she got none. But it was, and I love how, you talked about mentoring. That's one of the things that so many people need is they need to know what works and what works for one person might not work for another person, but they need options to be able to really be thinking about.
Well, I think a lot of agents, they feel like they get all this training, there's all this coursework, there's these tests, and they get out and they're ready, and I think so much of this job, it is one of those ones that you have to learn through experience. There's just no way to teach the ins and outs. Every contract is different. Every client is unique. Every situation requires different kind of care and thought and action. And that's why I do think it's so important that if you are a new agent, you've got to be paired with somebody who's got that experience,
Yes.
both for training for you, but also for, for the clients to know that they've got somebody that's going to really take care of them and understand this process and this business. And so I think it's twofold. It's for the agent and for the clients. It's just, you've got to grow. And that's why I do think that training is so important and mentorship is so important in this industry, because I think we really do need to set the bar higher. I think people have different expectations.
We shouldn't
of
be
real estate.
average.
We should not be average. Exceptional should be the standard. I think that every agent has, most agents have the capability of doing it to a higher level. I think that a lot of them, you don't know what you don't know. So I think a lot of it is training. I think a lot of agents don't know. It's very hard to gauge return on investment in this industry. So
I sent out 1,000 newsletters and didn't get anything back. Therefore, it was a waste. Well,
there you go. I shouldn't be doing
that.
newsletters. I sent out, 3,000 mailers, postcards, and I didn't get anything back. I'll never do mailers again. No, you've got to understand the bigger picture. So I think that's, that's definitely something that I feel like I can offer. Is I've done it a lot of different ways, and I've had a lot of, trial and error. And I think I've got a pretty good system down for understanding how this process works. But even more than that, how you take care of and build a business off of, the relationship with your clients.
Right. And it doesn't matter what your business is. I mean, that really is what's absolutely critical, is building that relationship with them. Even places like Walmart, we go to the same Walmart every Sunday to do our grocery shopping. The gentleman who is the, person making sure you're not stealing stuff, he recognizes us. Now he doesn't call us by name because he doesn't know it, but he'll say, "Missed you last week," and just things like that. And just those tiny little things make a difference. Even acknowledging somebody. I get really annoyed when I go in, especially to like a small business, and they don't say hello, right? Just, anything. Now they might be on the phone, so maybe a wave or whatever. We were just traveling and the hotel that we stayed in was a DoubleTree, which is a Hilton property. But I actually took the time while I was there and then afterwards to tell them how incredibly impressed I was with every single staff person.
Wow.
I talked to maintenance guys. I mean, anybody and everybody, and they all were absolutely phenomenal. And so, that manager was doing a great job in training everyone. You realize
that when everybody's on the same page that way, you realize that it comes from the top on down. Because I think ultimately most people want, if you're in a customer service related industry, I think people want to take care of people. I mean, I think that's in our nature to want people to feel good about, how we've treated them. But I think that there is, we get in our own way sometimes, and there's, laziness and other stuff that comes in, and expectations. And if the expectations are low, I think a lot of people will just rise to meet those. So if we raise the expectations, obviously the management there had set some pretty high expectations and had some employees who are doing a great job fulfilling those.
Yeah. One of the things they did, and I've had this happen now at a couple property hotels, so this must be kind of a new trend, is about an hour, 2 hours after you check in, you get a text from the front desk.
Yes.
How are you doing? Everything up to, what you were expecting. If not, please come back down. That's great. I always, and I mean, there have been times where I'm like ready to go out to dinner and they're like, stop by and we'll give you recommendations. So it's a real person. Because, it's like, okay, I know you, and back to the AI thing. I mean, you could set some of this up where it's an AI, but when I said, hey, we're thinking about dinner, they knew what to say. Now, yes, you can program the AI to do all of those things too. But then every day of our stay, we got another text. And it said, just checking to make sure that everything is okay. But they knew why we were there. And so they asked about that, and so just those tiny little touch points again, and I'm sure it was somebody just, it didn't take very long. It's, they weren't doing it on their phone. I'm sure they were actually doing it on a computer program. So that made it easier, but it just took a quick little thing of them to say, oh my gosh, bet you love that football game, because that's why we were there. Just those tiny little, because the thought process was and will be, the next time we go, that's where we will stay.
Exactly. And I think that is so important in any kind of a process oriented, transactionally driven. If you're talking most of the time, I know so many agents who go in and they go to a listing appointment and they have an agenda. They are going to go in and they're going to convince that seller that they are the right person for that job. So much more about how we interact with people is about listening. And I feel like I can serve my clients so much better if I understand the dynamics of what they're looking for, and I can hear the struggle that one might have over the other with leaving, and what the challenges might be, and what the timing restraints are, and all of that. And if you can get a picture of that and you can really listen to what your clients are looking for and what they need, you can serve them so much better in the end.
Well, yeah. And then you're not wasting time, because, maybe you pick up on the fact that they are, they want a gourmet kitchen. Yeah. Okay. Then you're not going to show them properties that doesn't have a gourmet kitchen. Yeah. Or, because I remember the reason I think of that is our realtor asked me, what do you want in a kitchen? And I'm like, I really don't care. I said, I just want a big kitchen. I'd always had a small kitchen. And I said, I don't need granite countertops. I don't need stainless steel appliances. I don't need any of that. I just want a nice, big functional kitchen. Yep. And so that's what she kept in mind when we went to other properties. And then the other thing is that it does become a challenge to keep up that service. I mean, if somebody, if we go back to that hotel in Florida in a couple of years and the service has declined, we will not be happy campers. And that's where and I think that's why some people think, oh, it's just easier to get new people. I don't want to have to keep being excellent. Well, too bad. Be excellent no matter what. Yeah.
And I think that people, just as you described, people really do appreciate when they're taken care of. People see and understand and are thankful and are grateful for how much better did that make your trip and your overall experience when you were there, because you knew that somebody was listening, paying attention, and cared about what you needed. And at the core of it, that's my job. That is my job, to listen, to figure out where the needs are, and to make sure that I create a path that fills all of those needs. And a lot of times they're conflictory needs, because a lot of times, partners, husbands and wives, spouses, they are not on the same page about stuff. But it's my job to figure out, what are the important things, and to really listen and curate that experience and that home for them that's going to fill all of those needs. And it's not going to be perfect. I mean, there's always going to be, compromises that need to be made, but making sure that you have listened and heard and can match, all of those pieces into that puzzle, I think is really important.
I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Kristi, we've got just a couple minutes left. Now, I know you're in Washington State, but I still want you to give your information out, because you never know who might be listening to this that is either moving to Washington or needs, they know somebody who needs a realtor there. So please tell us how people find you.
Absolutely. Well, I think like all good real estate agents, I have my phone with me 24/7, 365, much to my husband's dismay sometimes. But I'm 206-406-1970 is my cell phone. All of my social media handles are at Kristi Jenkins Real Estate. My website, KristiJenkinsRealEstate.com. It's pretty easy to find me across the board. And I really value any kind of questions. If you've got concerns about the area, or maybe you're just looking into, I love to be a resource for people. I'm not just a real estate agent, but I've got a huge curated list of contractors and vendors and different ideas for things and how to experience our area. So even if you're just coming to visit, this is my hometown. Let me give you an idea of what some of the best things you can do are when you come here too.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. And I think we've all learned an awful lot from it. So this has been
thanks,
great.
Deb.
Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I think that if anything, I just believe so much in setting a high expectation and a high standard for ourselves in the way that we take care of people. I just think that's inherently necessary in my business. I hope that I set a really high standard and have high expectations for people to expect out of me. And I would hope that would be the norm.
I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun getting to know Kristi Jenkins. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.